England have taken it very well, as you can imagine. It all ends in tears, it hurts, oh no, not again, heartbreak. A lot of questions, of course, about the penalty takers and why, in fact, it was Saka, a teenager, who took the last one. It's what Southgate said: I decided on the penalty takers based on what they've done in training. That's my call. It totally rests with me. We worked through them in training. This is the order we came to. We knew they were the best takers we had left on the pitch. This was the reaction when the boys heard that quote on yesterday's show.
That's the most insane sentence that I ever heard in football. I choose the player who's going to kick the penalty. It never worked like that. It will never work like that.
If I'm a Grealish character and I know I'm a £100 million player, potentially, talk of I'm going to Man City, super talent, experienced, I think I'm saying, listen, forget the 19-year-olds. I'm going to take that responsibility.
I agree with you. A Jack Grealish would have been more ready than Saka or Sancho.
Roy Keane with similar sentiments, saying if you're Sterling or Grealish, you cannot sit there and watch a kid walk up ahead of you. You can't. Jack Grealish responding to that quote, saying, I said I wanted to take one. The gaffer has made so many right decisions through this tournament, and he did tonight. But I won't have people say that I didn't want to take a penno when I said I will. Let's welcome in, shall we, Nedum Onuoha to the show. Nedum, what do you make of it all?
Sorry, 1 second. I need to just show support to my team.
Oh,
there we go.
Look at that.
I thought he was going to put it in England.
Yeah, it's interesting. No, it's interesting. Listening to the show yesterday, you know, there were some takes which you guys were delivering, and I don't fully agree with everything that's being said, because I understand the process which they use, because I was part of that same sort of formula when I was playing under 21s in 2009. And there are players who want to take penalties, but as far as it goes, you know, what they do in training, even though it can't replicate that big moment, that stuff does matter. And I think for those England players, the ones who step forward, they would understand why somebody is going ahead of them or why that order is how it was, because they've seen those people step up and strike penalties. It's the same sort of argument where, say, someone funny might step up to take a free kick from 20 yards out, and from the outside we look and say, why is this guy taking it? Well, the reason he's taking it is because this is what they've practiced, this is what they've seen. So it makes sense to them. And, you know, obviously once you lose a penalty shootout, you analyse everything. But for me, the fact is, you know, like, look at the penalty shootout. Jordan Pickford saved the same amount of penalties as Donnarumma. But because England missed one more, everything's wrong with England, but everything's great for Italy. And that's something I don't really buy into.
Stevie, what was your take on it all regarding the way in which the penalties were set up and the fact you've got Saka, a youngster, in his debut tournament, taking that fifth penalty?
I have absolutely no problem with him taking a penalty at all. None whatsoever. I do, however, have a problem taking the fifth one. If it was my choice, I would have had him going either first or second.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, he's standing there thinking about this for, 15 minutes?
Yes.
And he's a teenager and he's inexperienced. So that's the only thing. I've got no problem with taking it, but he should have taken it earlier. Should have taken it first. Harry Kane and Maguire should have been the one taking the fifth penalty. No question.
What about the argument that Jack Grealish should have taken one ahead of Saka?
Well, to Nedum's point, why is Jack Grealish getting put ahead of Saka? Because Saka's probably stuck 10 out of 10 away in training and said, I want to take a penalty. I'm going to score. So, you know, are you going to turn around the day of and say, oh, Jack Grealish is more experienced? Now, Jack Grealish has taken 5 penalties in training and missed 4 of them, but because he's more experienced, let's make Jack Grealish take the penalty. Why would you do that? That makes no sense either. The kid was confident of scoring from a penalty spot. And that's why I don't have a problem with taking it. But not at number 5. That's the only problem.
Stevie, that's not the point. I think the point is not if somebody should have taken the penalty instead of somebody else. It's the point that Gareth Southgate tells us that he decides who's going to shoot or who's not going to shoot. So it's nice that Grealish said, I want to shoot.
Who else is going to do it?
No, but I'm saying, let me finish. Jack Grealish said, OK, I'm ready to shoot. No, you don't shoot. OK, why? We don't have the answer that the 5 players who shot were ready to shoot it.
I'm sure they all were ready.
He doesn't say that, because otherwise he would have said, you know what,
Fine.
I decide, but they were okay to shoot it. They didn't say that.
If 6 people say I'm taking it,
Yeah.
who decides who the 5 are?
So then,
Coach.
Then the coach.
Well,
but
there you go.
that's
So
not
there's
his
your
saying.
answer.
That's not his saying. He's saying I choose who's going to shoot or not. For me, I hear even if you don't agree, even if you don't want to shoot, you're going to shoot it. That's what I hear. That's not the same story. If Saka say I want to shoot, I have no problem, but it's not what I hear. I hear that some players were forced to shoot. Otherwise, what is the reason to say I decide who shoots or not?
Frank, there's not a coach in the world who's going to say, by the way, you're hitting it.
Yeah.
Well, it's what he said. I decide who's going to be the
single
taker.
coach I've ever spoken to, and I've done it myself, I've asked every single one, do you want to take one or are you not sure? That's the question.
Right.
Exactly.
And you either get yes or, well, if you want. It's either yes or if you want, and then the coach picks.
Stevie,
and then judging by what you've done in practice,
I totally agree
that's
with
how you get your starting.
I totally agree with you, but I don't regret any word of that, what I said yesterday. When I heard Gareth Southgate at the post-conference press conference after the game, he said, I decide who is the taker. When you say that, it means even if they don't want, they go for it. Otherwise, what's the point to say that?
I think it's a little bit of semantics there, Frank. I think what he's saying is essentially taking the responsibility away from the players. And look, I made the choices. This is not about players that didn't want to take a penalty and allow the 19-year-old to take a penalty. I made the choice as to who was going to be in the order because of what I've observed in training.
If it's that, there is no arguments. You know, there is no discussion. So why Roy Keane is saying that? Why?
The argument is that it shouldn't be a 19-year-old who's got no experience.
Then if it's that, I go with Stevie. I don't have any problem. Then Saka, if he wanted to shoot the penalty, goes for it.
But Saka's never taken a penalty in his life. What a time to do it when you have Raheem Sterling who's been in a penalty shootout or Jack Grealish.
So it means that Gareth Southgate has something to do with the takers, that he chose between Saka and Grealish.
Yes, yeah, and he's saying, that's what he's saying. This is Robert. Nedum?
Do you know?
Yeah, sorry to jump in. Like, there were some great points being made there, and I think, Frank, it is a case of semantics. Like, Southgate has decided what the order would be from 1 through to 11. He hasn't decided somebody won't take a penalty, because if you're on the field, there's a chance you'll take the penalty. But that is the best lineup of players according to what they've done and how they feel in the moment, which is exactly why, towards the end of the game, like when they made that substitution to bring on, say, Sancho and Rashford, because they would be 2 of their best penalty takers, and Southgate would have 100% asked them, can you take a penalty? Will you take a penalty? And those guys, to their credit, said yes. And then when we talk about, say, Saka being 19 or whatever, and talk about experience is relative in relation to what you're talking about, because Saka's played 9 games for England, Grealish has played 12. We're talking about Grealish like he's played in multiple tournaments for England. And those penalties which England took, in my lifetime, you know, we can talk about the struggles of England in terms of international football. Those 5 penalties that those players took are the most amount of pressure any England player has ever been under at all. So it's not a normal situation for that group of guys. So anybody who said that they wanted to take one and they had a backing in terms of the fact that they'd scored some in training, like, credit to them. There was going to be no way, like, Grealish doesn't take one because 2 other people missed them before him. But he was in line. That was England's structure. And that's just the way that it is. As I say, for Southgate, he doesn't deserve to be attacked, because those players on the field would have understood 100% why the order was what it was. But from the outside, because we don't see how that all runs, we throw our expectations on it.
I have no problem. If it's just that, I have no problem whatsoever.
Right.
Quarterfinal of the World Cup against Italy, Trezeguet, 20 years old, and Thierry Henry, 20 years old, went for it. And they scored. Lizarazu, 28 years old, he missed it. We went through, but I have no problem as long as the player decides. Right. If it's a question of orders and who's going to shoot, I have no problem.
My only problem with Southgate, to be quite honest with you, is the timing of the substitution of Sancho and Rashford, because you don't give these guys an opportunity to actually have a meaningful touch on the ball before they actually step onto the penalty spot to take a penalty.
Let's get on into that, shall we? This was the starting 11, as you rightly mentioned. Sancho and Rashford coming off in the 120th minute. Before we hear what the boys have to say, this was Stuart Robson's reaction to those subs.
You can warm up as much as you like. You haven't kicked a ball. You don't have a ball on the side of the field. So the first touch they're going to have for ages will be that penalty kick under huge pressure in the final of the European Championship. It's an idiotic decision. And as they walked up, I think the group of people I was with said, "Oh, these two are going to miss. They're not warmed up. They're not in the game." And that was the case with Sancho and Rashford. It was an amazing decision, and I don't know what was going through Southgate or the coach's mind.
Back in 2006, Jamie Carragher was subbed on in the 119th minute against Portugal to take a penalty. He missed his as well. He tweeted, "Never easy to take a penalty, even more pressure when you're brought on for that reason. England have had a great tournament, but Italy just deserved it." Nedum.
This is killing me so much. This is killing me so much, honestly. Like, hearing this, like, I want you guys to explain to me then, what is a suitable warm-up to be able to take a penalty? Because when we compare football to other sports, it's hard. But this is an instance of one particular thing, which essentially is in a vacuum. Like, the pressure exists, but the pressure will exist for anybody who's taken a penalty in general. So why is it because you played 2 hours worth of football, you're better off taking a penalty than somebody who's just come on the field? Like, you're kicking a ball from 12 yards unopposed. No fitness is required. You have to score a goal. Like, what's the feel of a game? Like, when someone comes on the field and they score with their first touch, are we saying it's a miracle because it was their first touch? Or are we saying, well, they came on the field and they scored with their first touch? Like, it's a very, very unique skill. Like why does that require a particular warm-up or whatever, or feel for the game?
I absolutely agree 100% what Nedum said. And I'd like to add to that.
Right.
So you tell me, or somebody please explain to me, how it's better for the team to have 2 guys on the field who clearly ain't taking a penalty and maybe don't want to. I don't know, but are probably just not good at. Not everybody can take a penalty.
Right.
It's not easy to take a penalty. The greatest players in the world miss. Messi's missed a ton of them.
Yep.
That's how difficult it is.
You missed one.
I've missed one.
Yep.
It's not easy. And that's why I kept out the road from not taking another one. So please, can somebody explain to me why it's a better idea to keep 2 guys on the field who you know aren't good at penalties, to bring 2 others on who are quite happy to take a penalty kick? Why does that make more sense?
No, of course it doesn't make more sense if those 2 players are feeling good enough to take them on. But the thing is, maybe 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before, it would be, to just put them into the situation.
Oh, I guess what? Let's sacrifice losing the game then.
Why do you want to sacrifice?
Let's bring them on 10 minutes before. So you take Henderson off for a start and you bring her on 2 forwards. So you're going to sacrifice 10 minutes of the game.
Why don't you think you can win the game because of those 2 players?
You're willing to sacrifice 10 minutes at the end of the game for 90 minutes and another 20 minutes of extra time, and you say, well, we'll bring them on with 10 minutes to go. What if you lose the game in the 10 minutes?
10 minutes of the extra time.
Yeah, what if you lose the game, Frank?
Can I just say, all I'm asking for is that the first meaningful touch that these players have on the field is not taking a penalty. The situation in a perfect setup, it's still pressure-packed. And ideally, for anybody who steps to that position, it's already pressure-packed. But when your first touch, meaningful touch in the game, it is focused merely on that, on taking a penalty. That pressure has now magnified. Anybody who steps on the field in this sort of situation would be nervous, right? And how do you get rid of those nerves? You get a couple of sprints in. You complete a couple of passes. Now you feel like you're into the game. Now you're more likely to be in a position.
Yeah, we'll understand that.
Well, okay, that's all I'm saying.
But my question is, right, here's my question, and I just want a straight answer.
Okay.
My question is, would you rather have 2 guys coming on?
No, but they were going to be on the field. They were going to be on the field. I didn't say
I'm
don't
just
make
asking you a question. All I'm asking is a question.
Yeah, but I didn't say don't make a substitution. Just make it a little earlier.
I understand I understand every single thing that you're saying, and yes, in an ideal world, get them on with some time, get a couple of touches, the whole thing. Yes, in an ideal world. Well, when you're playing in a Euro Champions final, it's not an ideal world. You've got to balance. What I was arguing with Frank about bringing them on too early, you end up losing the game.
No, of course, TV.
With do you bring on 2 players who haven't touched the ball, which I agree 100% with, or do you keep 2 guys on who you know either aren't good at taking penalties or don't want to take penalties? I mean, it's
if you're
chicken
so
and the
afraid,
egg.
if you're so afraid of losing the game by playing Sancho and Marcus Rashford for 10 minutes ahead of the penalties, then you got bigger issues. Then maybe you should.
Whoa.
No. Then maybe you should.
You're going to play Sancho. Are you going to play Sancho or Rashford in the centre midfield?
Hey, maybe this is part of the reason as to why England loses the matches. The match, because actually after they scored, they were protecting. They were afraid of actually going forward. They went back to the team that they were in the group stage where they were unable to create chances and unwilling to create chances. Maybe that conservative approach is the thing that should change in the end.
That's funny that I try to understand the feeling that you have when you say that, but I'm with Ali, totally with Ali, in the fact that it wouldn't change anything because I really think that Italy wanted to go to the penalties and England too. So everybody was kind of ready, waiting for the 120-something minutes to stop and go for the penalties. I followed an interview and discussion, an argument between Rio Ferdinand, who barely shot penalties in his career, and Alan Shearer, who shot all the penalties for Newcastle, for England, and said, I wouldn't have loved to come on and shoot the penalty without touching the ball. Right. I shot more than 50 penalties in my career. I tell you, with no being on the field before, not feeling the atmosphere, not feeling a little bit of it and touching a little bit of the ball, it would have been a nightmare for me to shoot a penalty.
It would have been tough.
Crazy.
But you would still...
No.
So you'd still rather have two guys that don't want to take one or can't take one. That's the point.
We're running out of time here, Nedum.
Exactly. I was going to say that's the balance, because you're talking about Alan Shearer, who is a penalty taker. Think about Jordan Henderson and Kyle Walker, who won't be penalty takers, who have no confidence in that situation.
But
which one is better? A penalty taker that's mildly inconvenienced, or two players who can't maybe take a penalty at all? Which one is better?
You absolutely want to tell us that because, and that was the question from Alejandro before. Why putting Marcus Rashford and Sancho will be automatically a defeat for England for the last 10 minutes?
Well, you can't have Rashford playing it right back.
I don't care.
That's the problem.
I don't care.
Then you lose the game.
Then you lose
the game.
Why are you sure you're going to lose the game because you put Marcus Rashford who cannot defend?
Let me tell you, Frank.
Sancho cannot defend?
Frank, when you're sat on the sideline and you've got your players in front of you, right?
Yeah.
You can see every single thing that is going wrong and may go wrong. And if you want to stick two players on who are attacking players, one in the centre of the midfield and the other one at right back, with 3 or 4 minutes to go, I'll tell you what, that's a long 3 or 4 minutes for a coach.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that some players, because we talked about, for example, John Stones, talented, technical player. And, I understand Desailly and Deschamps didn't take the penalties. They were fighters, water carrier, let's say, defenders, not very technically, secure. But those
everybody
players
can take a penalty.
Frank, you're the exception. You're the exception.
Just because it's easy
No,
for you.
Laurent Blanc did it. I mean, so many players, defenders did it. And Johnston could have gotten one.
I played with some players who were regarded as the best of the time, who wouldn't go near a penalty kick.
Alan Hansen wasn't shooting penalties?
Wouldn't go near a penalty kick. One of the greatest defenders, footballers, you ask him to make a 20-yard pass or a 30-yard pass or a 5-yard pass,
right?
He would have a cigar out, a cup of tea, and then he'd flick it around. But when it came to a penalty kick, he wanted nothing to do with it. It's just, not everybody can take penalty kicks.
Okay.
Including me.
Last word now to Nedum.
Yes, he deserves it.
Oh, yeah, listen. In the end, Italy deserved to win the game, so we can talk about penalties all we want, but there's more balance to it, and the disaster is only a disaster because just purely because these guys stepped up, but it could have been a masterstroke, but it went the wrong way, and we always tend to overreact when it comes to penalty kicks. So that's me done. Have a great day.
Well, you're one of those people that can't really pull off hats, aren't you, Neil? Just a reminder, you can check out Extra Time over on our YouTube channel. The boys saying later. Answer your tweets.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.